Wait, did you hear that? That chant for Palestinian freedom is being criminalized by some European governments.
First and foremost, I'm very much against the idea of governments cracking down speech that people do not like, largely because that to me is a sign of tyranny once the government starts to crack down speech that people find offensive. Although I don't think that people of the Free Palestine movement should be shut down, I do in fact think that what they say is very much offensive once they say it out loud. The main reason why I find this whole entire statement offensive is largely because the terrorist group Hamas more or less have in their own personal statement that they want to get rid of the whole entire state of Israel. And not just that, but also apparently to get rid of all the Jews in the world. And so to them, when they said from the river to the sea, their own personal intentions is basically genocide against the whole entire Jewish race, and that right there is not necessarily okay in the slightest.
7 million Palestinians live under Israeli rule. The whole of that land used to be historic Palestine.
First and foremost, it's not necessarily true that the whole entire land used to be part of Palestine. If you look back in the past, there was actually something that was known as the Kingdom of Israel and the Kingdom of Judea. And the Jewish people during that time period were pretty much the natives of the land. But gradually over a period of time, that land was basically taken over by Alexander the Great, then that land was taken over by the Ottoman Empire, and then that land was later taken over by the British Mandate. So basically back in the past and present, Jews were more or less the natives of the land together with the Arab peoples during that time period and now. Even before the whole entire Jewish state was even created, you had Jewish people living side to side with the Arab people, and so basically they were just there even before the 1940s.
The whole of that land used to be historic Palestine, and now all of that territory is controlled by Israel.
Now the whole entire map in that video is pretty much misleading, because the British have noticed that more or less that the Palestinians and the Israelis cannot necessarily get along together. They propose this two-state solution, and basically Israel actually agree to the two-state solution, but Palestinians actually reject that whole entire map, and basically immediately as Israel began its own state, they fought against that whole entire notion. A lot of the land that were basically acquired over time was largely because Israeli forces were winning against Palestine, but gradually they gave back some of the land, such as the Gaza Strip, as well as the West Bank, back to those people, so that they can actually have their own personal space. But every single time there was like a two-state solution, the Palestinians keep refusing and refusing and refusing. Then later in the mid-2000s, the vast majority of the Palestinians basically voted in favor of Hamas. And most of the battles that have been done by the Israeli government is out of self-defense. Are there people that are suffering on both sides? Absolutely. But the motivations are very clear-cut. Basically, for the Israeli forces, they actually warn the people to actually evacuate before they go out and attack people. Meanwhile, groups like Hamas, they don't do nothing like that and just attack people because they feel like it. One group wants to eradicate the Jews, the other does not have such goals at all. The motivations are basically night and day. Now imagine if Native Americans want to get back to their home state that they were actually displaced. Are the Native Americans that want to go back to their own personal state colonizers because they actually want to get back to their original place? I don't think so. So if the Jews were basically native to that place, always been there, I just don't understand how exactly they're the same as a colonizer.
Palestinians living in Gaza, the West Bank and Israel all live under a system of apartheid.
How exactly are Palestinians living underneath Israel living underneath a system of apartheid? There are people who are Arab background who can actually vote, who can actually be part of the court system and businesses and so on, and they come directly from an Arab background. An apartheid system would not allow any of that to happen. In conclusion, I do in fact think that Israel has a right to exist. They're the only country in the Middle East that supports gay rights, that supports the idea of democracy, that supports women's rights in comparison to the other countries surrounding them. I just find it so incredibly ironic that they're calling the native people of the land colonizers when in the past Arab colonizers have colonized most of North Africa and the Middle East in the past. But let's just say, for the sake of argumentation, that Palestine get its own two-state solution in sometime in the future. I can only imagine it being just as bad as the other kind of Muslim countries with limited human rights for other people. And so when I see gay people supporting this whole entire movement, it makes no sort of sense to me in the slightest. But I digress.